Drone Cinematic Gear and Amp, settings that make footage look pro. Your drone doesn't need to be the newest or the most expensive to shoot wow footage. But if your videos still look like shaky, over-sharp, blown-out GoPro clips from 2016, it's not your drone's fault. It's your setup, your settings, and the way you're flying. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you the same practical cinematic checklist I use to make drone footage look expensive. The gear that actually matters, the camera settings that instantly level up your image, and the flight plus editing habits that separate nice drone clip from that looks like a movie. And here's the best part. Once you dial this in, you stop relying on luck. You can walk into almost any scene, sunset, city, mountains, beach, and pull out clean, smooth, cinematic shots on demand. Let's start with the biggest lie in drone filmmaking, that you need more resolution. Resolution is not what makes footage cinematic. Most cinematic look comes from motion, exposure discipline, and color. That's why you can have a 4K drone and still make footage that looks cheap if your shutter speed is wrong, your highlights are clipped, your movement is twitchy, and your colors are screaming neon. Cinematic is controlled, intentional, and consistent. So think like a filmmaker. You're not recording a place, you're telling the viewer where to look and how to feel. Now let's talk gear, because yes, some gear is absolutely worth buying, and some is pure marketing. If you want the single most important cinematic accessory for bright daytime shooting, it's ND filters. Not because they make it look cinematic by magic, but because they let you control shutter speed so your motion looks natural. Without ND filters, your camera is forced into extremely fast shutter speeds, and your footage gets that harsh, stuttery, hyper-sharp look that screams drone video. With ND filters, you can slow down your shutter, get pleasing motion blur, and suddenly, your pans and flybys feel smooth and film-like. If you only buy one set, get a basic kit that covers ND8, ND16, ND32, and ND64. ND8 and ND16 are great for overcast or golden hour. ND32 and ND64 are your sunny day weapons. And a quick rule: use the lightest ND that lets you keep the shutter where it needs to be without underexposing your shadows too much. The next gear piece that matters more than people realize is your props and how well your drone is balanced and tuned. Cinematic footage dies when micro-vibrations or jello shows up in the image. If you're on an FPV setup, props are not just whatever is in the bag. Prop choice affects smoothness, efficiency, and how stable your footage looks. Bent props, chipped props, or mismatched props create tiny oscillations that can ruin a beautiful shot. If you want cinematic FPV, you treat props like camera gear, not like disposable toys. For camera drones, keep your drone maintained, keep firmware updated, and keep your gimbal clean and calibrated. A gimbal that's fighting itself will show up as little corrections and weird horizon behavior that instantly looks amateur. If you're shooting FPV cinematic, another gear piece that can transform your look is a proper action camera setup. A camera that can shoot at high bitrate, with a flat profile, and with stabilization options you can control later. A simple mounting change can also make your footage smoother. Make sure the camera mount is secure, use proper dampening if needed, and don't mount in a way that amplifies vibration. For action cams, high bitrate matters because it preserves detail and avoids ugly compression in fast motion, especially in trees, grass, water, or city textures. Audio isn't usually a drone reel priority, but for longer YouTube videos and cinematic edits, sound design is a cheat code. Even if the drone audio itself isn't usable, adding subtle wind, ambient city noise, nature ambience, and tasteful whooshes makes your footage feel like a produced film, not a silent slideshow. Viewers often can't explain why it feels better, they just feel it. Now settings. This is where most people either level up instantly or keep suffering forever. The first setting you must understand is frame rate. If you want that classic cinematic motion, 24 frames per second is the standard because it's the traditional film cadence and it feels natural. If you're making social content that needs a slightly smoother look, 30 frames per second can work and often plays nicely on platforms. If you want slow motion, shoot 60 FPS or 120 FPS depending on your camera, and then slow it down in editing. But don't shoot everything in 60 and call it cinematic. Most of the time that looks like video. Cinematic is not more frames, it's controlled motion. A great workflow is 24 FPS for your hero cinematic shots, 60 FPS when you know you'll slow it down for reveal moments, and maybe 30 FPS if your channel style leans more modern and crisp. Next, shutter speed. This is the big one. A classic guideline is the 180-degree shutter rule. Your shutter speed should be about double your frame rate. So if you shoot 24 FPS, you aim for a shutter speed around 148, and most drones will give you 150. If you shoot 30 FPS, aim for 160. If you shoot 60 FPS, aim for 1120. This is what creates natural-looking motion blur. Without it, you get that staccato jitter when you pan or fly past objects. And that's why ND filters matter. They allow you to keep your shutter slow even in bright light. If you take only one thing from this entire script, take this. Frame rate plus shutter speed discipline is the fastest way to make your footage look expensive. Now, ISO. ISO is not a brightness tool, it's a noise tool. You want ISO as low as possible most of the time. On many drone cameras, ISO 100 is the sweet spot in daylight. When you crank ISO, you add noise and destroy dynamic range. Dynamic range is your ability to keep detail in highlights and shadows at the same time. And cinematic footage loves dynamic range because it keeps skies from blowing out and it keeps your shadows from turning into mush. So use ISO low. Use ND to control exposure in bright light, and in low light, be careful. It's better to accept a slightly darker image and lift it gently later than to blast ISO and end up with noisy, muddy footage that falls apart in editing. White balance is another silent killer. Auto white balance might look fine shot by shot, but it can shift mid-clip and ruin a scene. Cinematic is consistent. Set your white balance manually whenever you can. If you're shooting golden hour, lock it. If you're shooting midday, lock it. If you're in mixed lighting, choose a value that feels natural and stick with it. Consistency makes your color grading easier and your shots match like a real production. Sharpness, contrast, and saturation settings inside the drone camera also matter. Many drones sharpen aggressively to look crisp, straight out of camera, but cinematic footage usually looks better slightly softer because you can add controlled sharpening later if you need it. Too much in-camera sharpening makes edges crunchy and unnatural, especially on foliage and buildings. If your drone allows it, reduce sharpness a bit, keep contrast moderate, and avoid oversaturation. Cinematic color is rarely neon. It's usually balanced and intentional. Then there's color profile, normal versus flat or log. If your drone supports D-Log, D-Cine-like, HLG, or any flat profile, that's your path to cinematic grading, because it preserves more highlight and shadow detail. Flat profiles look washed out on purpose, so you can grade them later. The mistake people make is using a flat profile but then not grading, or grading too aggressively. The goal is clean, natural, controlled color. If you're a beginner, a cine-like profile is often easier than full log, because it's flatter than normal but not as demanding. If you're comfortable color grading, log can look incredible, especially in high-contrast scenes like sunsets, bright clouds, or dark forests. Bitrate and codec are underrated. Higher bitrate generally means fewer compression artifacts. If your drone gives you choices like H.264 versus H.265, H.265 is more efficient and often preserves more detail at the same file size, but it can be heavier to edit on older computers. Choose the highest bitrate you can reasonably handle. If your editor struggles, create proxies. Cinematic footage often fails because of compression mush. The moment you fly over trees or water, low bitrate turns everything into a blocky mess, and no amount of color grading fixes that. Now let's move from settings to how you actually shoot. Because even perfect settings won't save you if you fly like you're playing a video game. Cinematic movement is slow, smooth, and motivated. Motivated means the movement has a reason. You're revealing something, following a subject, changing perspective, or building emotion. Random spinning in place is not cinematic. The viewer should feel like the camera is gliding, not operating. Start by slowing down. Most people fly too fast because fast feels exciting while you're flying. But on screen, fast often looks cheap and chaotic unless it's intentional FPV action. For cinematic drone shots, slower gives your viewer time to absorb detail and emotion. It also reduces the stress on stabilization. Try this. On your next shoot, commit to flying 30% slower than you think you should. Then, in editing, if you want it faster, you can speed ramp or cut tighter. But you can't invent smooth if you flew like a rocket. Use gentle stick inputs. One trick is to think in curves, not angles. Your movement should feel like a smooth arc, not a sharp corner. If you're doing a reveal, start your move before the reveal begins, so the camera is already in motion and it feels natural. If you're doing an orbit, keep your radius consistent. If you're doing a push-in, don't suddenly accelerate at the end. Consistency is cinematic. The gimbal tilt is one of the most powerful cinematic tools you have. Most beginner drone footage looks amateur because the camera angle is straight down or perfectly level all the time. Cinematic filmmakers choose angles. A slightly downward tilt can make landscapes look epic and give a sense of scale. A level horizon can feel calm and cinematic for city skylines. A slightly upward tilt during a reveal can create drama. Pick an angle that matches your story and keep it stable through the shot. Composition matters more than fancy moves. Use leading lines, roads, rivers, coastlines, fences to guide the viewer's eye. Place your subject using the rule of thirds, not always centered. Use foreground elements when possible. Fly behind trees, rocks, or structures to add depth, but do it safely and legally. Depth is one of the easiest ways to make footage feel 3D and premium. If everything is flat and centered, it feels like surveillance footage. Lighting is everything. The best cinematic footage usually happens when the light is cinematic. Golden hour, sunrise, sunset, soft overcast, or dramatic clouds. Midday sun is harsh, with ugly shadows and blown highlights. You can still shoot midday, but you must work harder. Use ND filters, protect your highlights, and look for scenes where midday light works, like clean water reflections, bright desert, snow, or modern architecture. If you're serious about cinematic, plan shoots around light, not convenience. The same location can look completely different depending on the time of day. Now, let's get specific with shot types you can repeat anywhere to build a pro reel. A slow push-in is one of the most cinematic shots in history. Start wide, move forward slowly, keep your subject stable in frame, and let the background grow. A pull-out reveal is another. Start close on a detail, then smoothly pull back to reveal the full scene. An orbit works great when the subject is strong. A lighthouse, a tower, a car, a person, a cliff edge. The key is steady speed and consistent radius. A top-down map shot can be cinematic if the composition is clean. Roads like veins, waves hitting shore, patterns in fields. And a parallax shot, moving sideways while keeping a subject framed, creates depth and looks immediately cinematic. If you shoot FPV cinematic, your money shots are flow and proximity, but the same rules apply. Smoothness and intention. A cinematic FPV shot isn't just flying near objects, it's revealing space and scale with elegant lines. Keep your roll smooth, Avoid twitchy yaw, and don't overdo the freestyle moves unless the story calls for it. If you do a power loop or dive, it should feel like a camera move, not a trick. The moment it looks like a trick for the sake of a trick, it stops being cinematic and becomes just cool FPV. Cool FPV is great, but it's a different product. Stabilization is a tool, not a crutch. Many drones stabilize well, but if you rely on heavy stabilization on shaky footage, you'll get warping or rubbery edges. The best workflow is to capture stable movement in camera, then apply gentle stabilization if needed. If you're using an action camera, choose your stabilization mode wisely. Some modes crop more, some add warping. Test it. If you plan to add motion blur in post, don't over-sharpen your footage. Smooth plus slightly softer often looks more cinematic than super sharp and jittery. Now editing. This is where you can upgrade your footage massively without buying a new drone. Cinematic editing is rhythm. It's not just put clips together. Start with your strongest shot. Always. People decide in seconds whether they trust your video. If your first shot is average, you lose them. Grab attention with a dramatic reveal, a powerful perspective, or a clean movement that feels premium. Then keep the pacing tight. Drone shots are beautiful, but if you hold them too long, people scroll. If you cut too fast, it feels like a music video with no story. Find a pace that matches the music and the vibe. Color grading is the difference between nice and pro. If you shoot in a flat profile, your first step is a clean correction. Bring contrast back gently, set black levels, protect highlights, and balance white balance. Then you stylize. Be careful with saturation. Most cinematic grades are less saturated than you think, but they have rich contrast and controlled color separation. Skin tones, skies, and greens are usually the first things to break. If your greens are radioactive, it looks cheap. If your skies are clipped and cyan, it looks cheap. Aim for natural, then add a subtle style. LUTs can help, but LUTs are not magic. A LUT on badly exposed footage is like perfume on a garbage bag. Get exposure right first, then use LUTs gently, and always fine-tune. Motion blur in post can be a lifesaver if you accidentally shot with too fast a shutter and your footage looks stuttery. Some editors allow optical flow blur or motion blur plugins. Use them carefully. Too much looks fake. The best solution is still proper shutter in camera, but post blur can rescue a shot if you don't overdo it. Speed ramps can make drone videos addictive when used with taste. A smooth ramp into a reveal or a slow motion moment at the peak of a scene can feel cinematic. But constant speed ramps feel like a template. Use them to emphasize story beats, the reveal, the drop, the pass by, the moment you want the viewer to feel. Text overlays and titles for social content should be minimal and premium. Don't cover your footage with huge captions unless you're making an educational reel. If you are teaching, then captions are great, but keep them clean. One idea at a time, strong contrast, and placed where they don't block the subject. For cinematic videos, let the visuals breathe. Now let's talk about the pro look secrets most creators don't say out loud. 1. Cinematic footage is often underexposed slightly to protect highlights. Blown highlights scream amateur. 2. Shoot more than you think you need. Most pros shoot many takes and use only the best 2 seconds from each. 3. Match shots. A cinematic sequence feels like one world. Same white balance, same exposure style, similar movement language. If one clip is warm, the next is blue, and the next is neon green. It feels like random clips, not a film. 4. Simple shots done perfectly beat complex shots done poorly. A clean, stable push-in at golden hour is more cinematic than a risky low pass with shaky movement at noon. A quick, practical workflow you can apply every time. Before you hit record, pick your frame rate, set your shutter correctly, lock your white balance, set ISO low, choose a flat or cine-like profile if you plan to grade, and put on the right ND filter. Then plan your shot. What's the subject? What's the movement? What's the reveal? Fly slower than you think. Do 2 or 3 takes. Review quickly for exposure and horizon. Then move on. Let's also address safety and legality because nothing kills a brand faster than reckless flying. Cinematic doesn't mean dangerous. Fly within your local rules, respect no-fly zones, don't fly over crowds, and don't chase shots that could endanger people. The real flex is being consistent, professional, and safe, while still delivering stunning visuals. If you apply everything you learned here, you'll notice a shift. People will stop saying, "cool drone," and start saying, "this looks like Netflix." And that's what we want. Because cinematic isn't about showing you have a drone. It's about making people feel something with the camera you happen to be flying. Now your action step. On your next shoot, commit to one cinematic rule you'll never break again. Lock your white balance, keep your shutter correct, and fly slow with intention. Do that for a week and your footage will jump levels. And when you want to go even further, start building a repeatable style. The same types of moves, the same color palette, and the same pacing, so people recognize your videos before they even see your name. If you liked this video, subscribe to Drones on Steroids YouTube channel, and see you with the next video.